Gamay, you guys, it's Gamay. I love Gamay. I love to surprise myself with Gamay, and every time I do, I love to break stereotypes about Gamay. And I am sure that when you think about Gamay, you think about raspberry flavored bubblegum or vanilla and very, these very Barbie flavors. I am going to present something which is a complete antipode to that. So let's... It feels very much at home in France, predominantly in these three top places. We have Burgundy, where it is very often mixed with Pinot Noir. So hashtag Passe du Grand or hashtag Bourgogne Rouge. This is what you look in the bottle if you're looking for a mix of Gamay and Pinot Noir. Beaujolais, of course. And there are quite stunning examples of Gamay in Loire. Okay, so there was this mean man in Burgundy in about 14th century who just started spreading really hateful rumors about Gamay. His name was Duke Philippe II. And this guy would be like,
Gamay is a grape variety which is really bad. It is harmful to humans. It is disloyal.
What? Anyway, it is because of him that Gamay got cancelled from Burgundy. It got completely kicked out, like totally banned. There was an actual ban. If you have any Gamay grape plantations, you have to cut them off. You have to plant everything with Pinot Noir. And his reasoning was, because Gamay produces high yields, because you can make a lot of wine out of Gamay. And if you can make a lot of wine out of Gamay, it's not aristocratic enough. It's not noble enough. Imagine that. And instead he said that apparently Pinot Noir was a more prestigious, was a more honorable grape variety. And this is what happens. 15th century, we see a gradual decrease in Gamay plantations. And then, after 17th, 18th, 19th century, almost completely disappears from the landscape of Burgundy wines and moves slowly to Beaujolais. And also, anyway, the examples that we have of Gamay today are so delicious. So, whatever, Duke. And it was also not a bad idea for Gamay to move further south to Beaujolais, because it has really perfect soils. The Beaujolais offers perfect soils for our Gamay. Namely, Gamay is a grape variety that really likes that rock solid soil. So granite, I'm thinking granite or granite? Let's call it granite. So granite is like a perfect soil type for Gamay, which you find a lot of it, quite a lot of it in Beaujolais. One thing that almost always pops up in a conversation about Beaujolais and Gamay is carbonic maceration or macération carbonique. This is a notion that is very strongly connected with Beaujolais. So imagine you have this big tank. You fill it up with CO2, carbon dioxide, and then you fill it up with grapes. Now these grapes are not crushed, they are intact. So this would be something contrary to a regular classic fermentation where you first crush the grapes and then you fill them up in a vessel to start fermentation. So what happens with a macération carbonique or carbonic maceration is that these grapes in a tank, under the influence of CO2, they actually start fermenting. But the curious thing is that they start fermenting inside of their skins. So they still remain intact and the fermentation happens kind of inside of the grape. This is called intercellular fermentation. Oh, I can't remember. So CO2 is going to break the sugars and it is going to slowly start the fermentation without the yeast. So yeastless fermentation. So what happens is you can ferment your grape varieties into wine, your grapes into wine really fast using that method. But drinking that wine, drinking too much of it, almost certainly going to give you this soaring headache in the morning. It is not the best way of making wine. Like, in fact, I would just absolutely avoid it. This method is strongly connected to Beaujolais Nouveau wine, a wine that you probably heard about, this huge party that happens about 6 weeks after the harvest, the harvest in Burgundy or in Beaujolais. And there's this huge party taking place where everybody's drinking this first wine, or Beaujolais Nouveau. And then the next day everybody wakes up and just swears that he or she are never going to touch wine ever again. It's a poorly made wine. Now, a variation of this carbonic maceration, or macération carbonique, is used in Beaujolais. It is called semi-carbonic maceration. So what happens in a semi-carbonic maceration, this is just gonna get really geeky, but if you know that, you're gonna rock your wine world. This is like, you're the best. Okay, so semi-carbonic maceration. You have a tank, quite a large tank, and again, intact, healthy, full-on grapes, not crushed, are filled in a tank. Under the weight from the grapes which are on the top, the grapes which are below or on the bottom, they start to crash, they crack. They release juice, and then the fermentation with indigenous or natural yeasts that are usually present on the skin of the grapes starts to take place. So the bottom grapes are actually fermenting kind of in a natural way. However, the grapes on top do something very different. So when the fermentation happens to the bottom grapes, they release CO2, and that CO2 then influences the grapes that are on top. And these grapes on top, they undergo this classical carbonic maceration. So again, CO2 comes from the top, from the classical fermentation from the top, comes from the bottom, comes on top as a result of a natural or classical fermentation with the yeast. It influences the intact grapes, and then that intercellular carbonic fermentation starts happening inside of each individual grape. I feel like I just go full speed if I explain something very complex, because I want to do it in a way that everybody understands. And in the middle, I always catch myself like, okay, nobody can follow that, and then it becomes just a mess. Just like this carbonic maceration is. But it offers you a very fast product, which is also quite enjoyable if you think about it, because it is a wine that doesn't have a lot of tannins. It is a very juicy wine. It's usually extremely fruity. So really, if you think about bubblegum, really any bubblegum, cherry, raspberry, strawberry, really any bubblegum, it smells exactly like that. It has this vanilla marshmallow that is just instantly like, oh my God, I can have like liters of that, which if you do, you're gonna have a headache. But it was very useful in the 70s, 80s, when, well, people especially in big cities, they need a lot of wine and really fast. And so Beaujolais just became this symbol of, juicy, light, conversation wine, drink, not to think wine. Which is, I would say avoided, because we've produced so many fancy books. We have acquired so much know-how about making wine, about how to make this good quality product full of quality. And so just returning to those primitive techniques that were invented as a byproduct of industrialization it feels like betraying wine. Do you know what I mean? And like, who needs wine that is made in 6 weeks? For real. Well, anyway, the winemakers in Beaujolais have really excelled themselves, because they have created a product which is of course made of Gamay grape variety, but is increasing in popularity and is becoming this really symbol of revival in Beaujolais. Kind of like similar to Muscadet, I would say. If you haven't watched my episode and video on Muscadet, you should definitely do that. I'm going to include it here. I tasted 4 and I broke some stereotypes about Muscadet as well, which I think it would be a fair way to say that Beaujolais is a red sister of Muscadet. Kind of, they have the same development path. Their reputation is now getting stronger and stronger, and more people are curious about those wines, and the winemakers themselves make just really blow my mind. wines. So in Beaujolais, if you're looking for a wine that is going to blow your mind, which is made with Gamay grape variety, you are going to want to look for these 10 words on your bottle. And these 10 words are specific places in the Beaujolais region that are called crus. There are 10 of those. They're all Gamay, grown in granite. So this is again a proof that granite and Beaujolais are just like best buds. Let's see if I can name those 10. I actually learned them from my school. So we have, I never do, but let's see. Okay, so we have Moulin à Vin. So we have Moulin à Vin. We have Morgon, Julianas, Chenas, or Chenas, Brouilly, Côte de Brouilly, Régnié, Fleury, just give me a second, 2 more. How could I forget? It's Chirouble and Saint-Amour. So today I'm going to drink Régnié. It is, I actually completely forgot that this cru ever existed, but it blew my mind. I am going to be so embarrassed, but I'm going to tell you that because when I tasted this Gamay grape variety, and this is just a very embarrassing thing to admit for a wine lover, wine professional, which I, kind of am. After this, maybe it's questionable. Anyway, I tasted this blind and I tipped Cabernet Sauvignon, okay? This is just... So we're having one of the crus. It is called Régnié. It is from Domaine Capréoles, quite a young wine estate, established in 2014, if I'm not mistaken. But the winemaker has actually extensive experience in tending to vines and making wine in Languedoc, which is the southernmost area of growing wine in France. He aged the wines predominantly in oak barrels, so barriques, small oak barrels, for like a year. And then he also mentions that there's a small percentage of the wines are also parallelly aged in concrete vats, and then they're mixed together. So the wine is called Diaclase, and it is translated as crack. No. That kind of crack. A crack as in a crack in the soil. Because you have these granite soils, which are just pure rock. So the only way for the vine to send its roots really, really deep inside of those soils and get all of the microorganisms is when there are cracks in the soil. So this is named after that. And obviously the water is going to supply the vine roots with moisture through those cracks as well. So this wine is dedicated obviously to cracks. Okay, the first thing that actually surprised me, and my boyfriend was with me at this blind tasting, was the color. And it was just so inky, it reminded me of Syrah. I actually thought it was, no, he thought it was Syrah. He tipped Syrah and I tipped Cabernet. God, it's so embarrassing. It has this beautiful bluish inky color, which is for me very reminiscent of Syrah. And then the first nose is incredibly packed. It's just spice and a light leathery touch. It's, it almost has everything for me. It has beautiful fruit. It's like a mixture of the blackberries, plums, this cassis, blueberries also. Oh, this lovely spiciness, just instantly fall in love. Wow. A bit of licorice, a bit of anise, star anise, a bit of that like a light piment touch. It feels really packed. It feels very dense. The tannic structure of it is incredible. It is so firm, but at the same time really juicy. It gives you this lovely volume on the palate, but everything is really well connected. It stays, harmonious and well balanced. So you have this tightness of the tannins, you have this volume, the acidic volume, then this fruitiness, and then you still kind of have this, you just instantly lean towards the glass and you just want to dive in and enjoy because it is so seductive. Oh, lovely. A bit of violets as well. Beautiful, that kirsch that you kind of dip in a sweet liqueur, and you have this lovely kirsch cherry. Loved it there, love it now. Beautiful dish. A fantastic wine. Do not miss if you ever see this on the shelf. From this producer, really from any other, I would trust them. Go for it. Really go for it. It's an amazing product, and it's also quite price friendly too. Oh, and did I mention it's also made in a organic way, so nature friendly, beautiful. All right, I'm gonna wrap up. Just one more sip. This is what you call a delicious wine. By the way, right now I have no idea why I tipped Cabernet Sauvignon. It must have been some kind of hormonal twist happening inside of you, because it has nothing common with Cabernet Sauvignon now that we drink it. It was a pressure of blind tasting. Delish. Thank you very much for watching. I hope I'm going to see you very soon, and I'm not sure what I'm going to talk to you next. Maybe I'll cook some gougère. We'll see.